My name is Rich Schmidt. We're here with Jared Lloyd. We're at Laughlin Ranch in Yamhill. It's July 12th, 2024. Jared, thank you so much for joining us today. First question, let's talk about animals. How did you get into animals and grazing-based agriculture?
So I'm at least 5 generations stockman from Western Colorado. I don't really know what my ancestors did before Colorado. So I would assume that it had something to do with livestock. So pretty agricultural. My grandpas were from cattle families and my grandmas were from sheep families, and then they made me. So I've got a little of both.
Tell us about early life. Where were you born and raised?
Outside of Grand Junction, Colorado, up on the Grand Mesa. So my family actually homesteaded Rapid Creek and Cruisin' Springs outside of Palisade. So some of the first vineyards that were planted in Colorado in the 1800s were like in our little area. We farmed peaches there. But yeah, if you haven't ever had Palisade peaches, you gotta do it. And we were just back from my grandpa's funeral actually, and I was like on a mission to pick up some Cab Franc and Viognier, because like there's some pretty good wine made out there, and I was so disappointed because I only found 2 bottles that were. And I don't think it's because I'm a snob now from drinking better wines in Oregon, but I was kind of bummed. But yeah, so cab country, and this is Prim.
Hey, Prim.
Early life. Well, I was a little weirdo with the pet barred rock hen named Claudine, if that sheds any insight into my personality. So yeah, I always had livestock growing up, farmed. My mom always had huge gardens. That region was super poor. So, you know, everybody was pretty broke, and we all had gardens and farms, and everybody kind of lived out of what they had. Did a lot of cowboying, a lot of sheep shearing. Had a few Chardonnay vines at my mom's house, or at my folks', and that for some reason that almost 7,000 feet haven't died. Not really sure how that's working, but it's working. The droughts in 2002 and 2008 and 2012 all made me change my production modalities. Like hay prices went through the roof, and so completely unaffordable. So I transitioned my flock. I sold my cattle at that point, and transitioned my sheep program to full-time winter grazing. And so we went down and started grazing hay fields and orchards in my first vineyard in Grand Junction in 2012. And so we have not fed hay. Well, as a general practice, we don't feed hay anymore. We've transitioned totally to year-round grazing, outdoor lambing. It's been a difficult transition for some bloodlines, but for the most part, the really cool old heritage bloodlines just thrive in it, and so they're doing really well, and they've transitioned beautifully into vineyard and restoration grazing here.
Tell me about growing up or heading sort of high school age. What did you think you would do? What was your plan?
Actually, okay, so agritourism was always, agritourism. I always wanted to have an agriturismo, and like an educational aspect to it. But I wanted to serve. I love feeding people, and I love pouring good coffee and good wine, and that's kind of my just kind of me. But I wanted to have a place that would bring people in, and I still feel like that. I feel like there's like this gathering kind of call, but yeah, that's what I wanted to do. When I grow up, I still want to do that. But like in my mind's eye, I picture. Have you ever read any of the Brother Cadfael mysteries? Like, so I picture myself kind of like Cadfael out there, like in my little herb shop, and you know, maybe not monastic, but you know, but yeah, just a quiet, peaceful kind of. Yeah. So someday when I have my own vineyard and winery, that's how I want to have my tasting room, is long tables and meals and excellent wines, but approachable atmosphere. So that's how I want to do that. And
at what point did wine become something you were interested in?
I think I've always liked it since, like, at family gatherings, my uncle would pour me a little bit, and he'd, you know, go through a bunch of psalm lingo and teach you know, and I think I was about 16 when I was like, I want to farm Viognier, and I want to do all of my cultivation work with the team, and you know, and I'm a sucker for gray horses, man. I do sketchy stuff for a gray horse, and it's pathetic. But yeah, I'm just like, I could see myself with a team of gray perch, or even cross draft horses, and like just out, you know, and yeah. But yeah, I think that's. I've always had a thing for Viognier too, like those aromatics. So I grew up, you know, in apricot and peach stone fruit country, and so like those aromatics with that little apricot zing, just, oh, dude, gets me.
So tell me about getting started professionally. What was the first thing you did to earn a living?
Well, I did a lot of cowboying as a kid. Worked for an old veterinarian. Worked in the coffee shop after I got my own herd. I'm gonna, you know, like the cash flow for the ranch deal, and then managed the coffee shop a little later, and tended bar and a few things like that. And yeah, and then marketed all my lamb. I mostly only grew enough beef to keep everybody in the family, you know, the close extended family, keep good beef in the freezers. But the lamb I was taking up valley to like Aspen, Carbondale, to the resort towns, and then selling to some restaurants up there, and then farmers markets. And so then as I scaled up, it just kind of grew from there. You know, took on some larger projects like for the Forest Service, and we're grazing a lot of riparian areas for them, targeting some really cool invasives. One of the coolest things about invasive species is they're there for a reason. Like, they're an indicator of, you know, a problem, but they're usually really palatable and highly nutritious. So like these blackberries are like so full of protein, and they're incredible winter feed. Like, you know, when they're great. But there we were targeting oxeye daisies and scentless chamomile and musk thistles, and well, those are the primary target species, like in the riparian areas. And then we go out ahead of the cattle, like and graze under the aspen, kind of in the bowls where they like to grow, and we'd graze out the larkspur and ahead of the cattle and ahead of the elk, because the larkspur is toxic to most other ruminants. And so it's really, really cool. And then we got wolves, and it was bad. So that's part of what prompted the exodus to. My wife was working for our local clinic, and she was an MA, and she was the junior, like, position there, and so like one of the doctors took a job in another town, and so they were gonna eliminate all of our hours virtually to 10 hours a week. And so like I lost more than half of my lamb crop to the wolves, and then our contracting the lambs to a company I probably shouldn't say anything bad about, even though they're evil. But anyway, they hosed us on our contract, and like we were just skunked. And so I was like, well, I'll work in the hatchery for my grandpa, because my grandpa had a trout hatchery, and they fracked up the road and all the ponds and the springs and inside the hatchery and the spring fit, everything on the south side of the Buzzard Creek, everything died. And I don't know if it was just only affecting the aquifers on that side of the creek, but because the one pond, like we had a catch out pond and those fish were okay, but like we had one pond of some rainbows and that was it. So we're just like, what do we do, God? And I made a few phone calls up here, and I had 3 job offers, and shearing and some other things, and so we moved up, had a safe place for me. We brought our core genetics, like 120-ish of my best ewes, and first year was hard on them. Like you change like gut microbiome, and it's like transplanting plants. It just beats them up, and you full bellies and they're not digesting correctly, and it was rough. But the ones that made it, or didn't need to be cold or whatever, like fabulous animals. And my girls.
Tell me about being a shepherd. I'm curious about learning that and I guess sort of what it's like to be a shepherd in this day and age.
Whew. This is fun stuff, and also it like tears your guts up just a little bit too. But there's a lot of things like you learn generationally, and I think they're even like ancestral memories that come through DNA. Like there's some things there. Just like in how you approach stock, some of those things, well, like even like with the border collies, like they have instincts that they may have never had contact with a parent dog or another dog working, and they have perfectly mirrored instincts to one of the parents. And I feel like we do that too. There's something in us that knows things. But I grew up with grandpas that were really good stockmen, mentors that were incredible people. I'm always teasing my wife, like, if we have a redheaded baby, I want to call him Hugh, but like, because Hugh was this old guy, our neighbor, and he was like another grandpa kind of character, and I'm always joking, like, anyway, she hates the name Hugh, and I'm always teasing her, but if we have a redheaded baby, I get to name him Hugh. But anyway, no, Hugh Sieber was a very important mentor for that. They always say, one of the little cliches we use in livestock is you can take a sheepman and he can run cattle very well, but you can't take a cattleman and expect him to be able to run sheep. Like you go from watching an animal that's a prey animal that cannot exhibit any symptoms of disease or parasite load or stress, otherwise it's toast, right? And so that's why they say, like, sheep are just looking for a place to die in livestock circles, and they're like, no, they just can't show you anything. And if you're not watching, you don't see that ear just drooped a teeny little bit, or whatever, it's us. But there's some of the bigger challenges we face right now is, like, in our society, everything is little squares. Like, if you look, like, everything is property boundaries and these, chopped up and segmented, and so, like, there aren't natural movements. And so there aren't territorial flows and migrations, and those are crucial to not only like the landscape, the health of the soil and the plants and the animals and us. Like there's supposed to be this, like, how many tens of thousands of years have we co-evolved with these like systems where we're herdsmen and farmers, and like there's and then we've, in the last few hundred years, we've just hit this wall, and there aren't the system's perceiving it as a threat. Like we can see that, like with their grapevines and stuff, like we make a monoculture and there's this quorum signal to throw everything at it to make it diverse again. So we've got weeds, we've got insect pests, we've got fungal pests that are coming in there to correct this perceived overpopulation, and it's perceiving it as, you know, suppressive of what the system needs, right? It's the same thing with the sheep. And so like we've got these set stock grazing models where like you have a large area, you kick out the animals and you leave them. And there's a saying, a very old saying, have to quote, if I'm not quoting Jurassic Park or Pitch Perfect or Zorro, it's anyway. You can overgraze 1,000 acres with one cow, or you're not necessarily overgrazing 1 acre with 1,000 cows. It's the intensity and the recovery period. Like it needs the rest after it's been grazed, and you can take it to, I mean, like you can graze it super low, and it's gonna shock everything, but then it's gonna like trigger this intense regrowth, and you're fertilizing it, and like the schmoozy goo, like the slobbery stuff on the cow's noses, like that enzyme and microbial exchange through grazing like does this incredible re-energizing of the plant, and it's amazing. But so you've got to rebuild that. One of the challenges we've got with the sheep for this sort of thing is like, if you're not moving, you're not staying ahead of, especially like parasite issues. Barber pole worm is it's a nematode that attaches to the stomach lining, and like it's a huge, I don't like the word industry. Industry bothers me, like, because I feel like it's like just crushing craft. But such a hippie, sorry. The barber poles, right? Yeah, Haemonchus contortus. Their life cycle, though, is so easily disrupted by just not allowing them to attach to a host. And they've got, like, especially in hotter and humid environments, like the hatch rate on their eggs extends a lot longer, but most of those eggs are hatching in 6 to 8 days. So if you're never on a pasture longer than 7 days, you have virtually no reinfestation. And then if you have a minimum of 8-week recovery period for the pastures, the L4 larvae aren't able, like, they die on the tips of the grass before they get eaten, and then that's I mean, their life cycle is totally disrupted. So just that one species, and then there's other things, you know, hoof rot. I mean, that's a big challenge here, a big economic, because it's so wet. That mycobacterium is pretty intense. So, but just movements, you stay ahead of those things.
So you mentioned some of the projects you worked on in Colorado, especially the Forest Service projects. How do those kinds of things come up, and what is the role you play?
So for me, I was trying to innovate. We were pretty much restricted to my grandparents' 80 acres. The main family ranch sold when I was a kid, and so like I had that for a resource for like a home base. Mm-hmm. But leasing other properties is extremely problematic, like, and especially with the huge influx of like gentrification and the oil field and water companies buying up land, and it's a hot mess. Colorado's a train wreck, and like, oh my God, it's so pretty. and you know, then they tear down your grandma's house and build a mansion in the middle of the hayfield kind of thing. You know, it's awful. And oh, there's an airstrip there along the ditch bank. You know, kind of like but I had to innovate, and that was the way I could do it. Like, I was starting to implement some of the better grazing practices, because I grew up like everyone else, conventional, and you know, pump them full of wormer, and like these, you know, all that. And actually, the really difficult circumstances are what forced me to change. And so I've been reading some other stories from other like regen meat and crop producers, and like Gabe Brown, and it's like wow, that's almost identical to how my story, you know, like it's really cool to see like how these are forcing us into new situations. Anyway, I had tried for years to get a grazing permit with the Forest Service, and like you can't get the old guys to sell you permits, or like they don't come down generationally anymore. Like there's a lot of challenges to that, and I feel like as a stockman, it's an important role to. It's also our responsibility to take a role in managing public lands. Mm-hmm. Like I hear a lot of people that, you know, harsh on it, and like, and there are lots of cases where people are taking advantage of it or doing a really poor job. Like, I'm not a Bundy fan at all. Those guys, so injurious to everything we do. Mm-hmm. And I changed my approach. Like, I couldn't run cattle anymore because the market was so volatile. It still is so volatile. And they consume so much more with less output. So there is more ROI. There's more sheep just produce more. There's more labor, but there's a lot more. They give you a lot more back. And so I transitioned more to running sheep, and there were opportunities to go into targeted grazing, and so I could approach like government entities and that sort of thing and have opportunities. And so it's pretty cool. And it's all in how you approach people too. Like, all I have a right, you know, is, you know, get out of here, jerk, you know? Like, but like, well, like with that, like, they're gonna pay tens of thousands of dollars for herbicide applications up those drainages. And I was like, hey, Monica, my range con, I was like, what if we just took our ewes up there next summer? And she's like, yeah, let's get the district ranger and everybody on this. And it was a really cool project. And then we got wolves, so, you know, like it just obliterated us. But yeah, so it was freaking cool. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the quality of the lamb, the meat quality is night and day different. Like, it is amazing. And there's terroir in that too. Oh my God. Okay, so terroir is in everything, right? And so I love that concept to be able to discuss that with like the meats and stuff too. Like these old heritage breed sheep just taste better anyway, but like they reflect so much of what they're grazing. And there's some really cool things like back there, like you're up there grazing, you know, like snowberries, and there's some like wild anise and these incredible things, and it comes through in the meat, and it was so delicious. And I mean, and it's pretty darn good here too, so it's cool.
So while you're still in Colorado, what role was vineyard and wine playing in your life?
Not a whole lot other than interest, and I read a lot, and you know, like grabbing Jancis's book from my uncle, and like all the, you know, like you know, and like that. There, Madeline hadn't produced Wine Folly yet, and I'm still mad at her for not, you know, doing that retroactively when I was a teenager. But it's on the shelf with all my good cookbooks and my Bible. Like that's important. But
the shrine space. The
yes,
shrine space. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, no, just reading a lot and like, what would I do if I could, you know, and talking to some of the guys in the lower valley that were farming a lot of grapes. And there's kind of a cranky German dude that farms a bunch down there, so I was always like, Reiner, what if I, and he'd be like, rah, 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 you know. And, but yeah, it's pretty cool. But that was pretty much it. Just tasting some wines and dreaming about how I'd farm it and where and, you know, aspects, and like there's some cool, yeah. I think you farm it like the Rocks district up there, and so if you did get one of those really freak cold snaps, yeah, it'd be cool. But,
so when it came time to leave Colorado, where were you thinking of going, and why did you end up here?
There aren't wolves in the Willamette. That was a big help. That's a big wound, man. That is gruesome. Like, just constant. Anyway, so that was a big factor. And I had friends up here in the sheep community, and I knew there was a wine industry, and so I thought, well, I could transition into, I could still be doing some targeted grazing. I have the right genetics for it in my flock, like, and I can shear part of the time to, you know, cash flow. And yeah, so, but we ended up in Lacombe, and the east side of the valley is rough. And I love Polk County, man. It's so chill. Like, it's, yeah. Now we're in Monmouth, and it's awesome. Yeah. Came up to the east side of the valley, Lynn County. It was good for then, a lot of good healing, getting back on our feet, getting some huge debts paid off, and yeah, so it was cool.
What were the first things you in Oregon? What were the first sort of things you mentioned? Targeted grazing was something you could do. Yeah. How did you find projects? How did you find work?
Kind of word of mouth. One of my, like the Shetland community, there's like this little group of aunties, and they're, you know, one in Newburgh, or two in Newburgh at the time. One moved to Texas recently, but, and then Robin Hart, and Robin is good people, and she's good friends with Daniel at Christum. And that was my in at Christum for my first grazing, my real vineyard grazing project in the valley. And their Shetlands are my grand lambs. They're my grandbabies. And so I love their social media posts, and I got to shear when I was still shearing. I had to retire. I'm too damn old. So, gosh. And if you're not shearing like all the time, it destroys you. It's kind of like vineyard ops. If you're not just like constantly on an ops team and with a crew, you know, you go work in the office for a few days and then back out to the vineyard for a few days, it destroys you. Same with shearing. And anyway, yeah. Dan. Love Dan.
So when it came to the first vineyard grazing project with Christum, tell me about how that came. Was that something that you were seeking, vineyard specifically? Had you planned it out already, or did Dan come to you with an idea?
I think Robin, I'm trying to remember. I think Robin put us together, and I'd mentioned doing some vineyard grazing, and Robin's like, oh, you just need to talk to Dan. And I don't remember if he was in, I don't know if he took vit courses with Robin's son or not. Anyway, anyway, I think she was the catalyst for it. And I, at the time, hadn't had a whole lot of experience with biodynamics, and couldn't have really told you much difference between it and conventional or organics. And then since working with RP, like, you know, hundreds of clients and sites, and on the, you know, in ops, and then on the vit team and stuff. I've seen a lot of different farming systems, and it's amazing. But when I went up there the first time, the neighbor vines, you know, it's the same soil, same aspects, same everything, and the Christum sub-canopy is alive. The vines are less heat stressed, and, you know, 30 feet on the other side of the driveway, heat stress, nuked soil, sickly looking plants, chlorosis. I mean, like, there's a lot of problems. And so I was asking Daniel, I was just like, what's going on here? And he was like starting to explain some of the things, and I'm like, you know, coming from a stockman perspective and forages and like range health sort of thing, like, it was, you know, like, it's, bare soil is a problem. And that was pretty appalling to see. Like, I'm coming in and there's like, you know, I'm totally Julie Andrews. Oh, it's all the green and it's so gorgeous, and there's all this feed and it's amazing, and they're like, spray that shit, mow it, and I'm like, so yeah, it was kind of, and I think everybody at like RP was like, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Plenty, let me tell you, there's plenty wrong with me. But yeah, it's like, yeah, I think the first time at RP, I was in a mid-valley vineyard, and I was like, I was working for Morgan Garai, and this guy, dude, Morgan is one of the smartest people I've ever met. And he's an incredible teacher, and if I'm any good at viticulture, it's probably mostly due to Morgan. I love that guy. And but I was out there in one of those mid-valley production vineyards, and I was like, man, this, you know, like, this cover crop is chlorotic and sickly, and I'm like what do you think it would be like if we did pitch grazing, you know, as a thing? Like, we can, you know, bring some of this back. And he's like, we'll just hit it with some nitrogen later, and it'll green back up. And I'm just like, oh, oh. And then, you know, and then we eventually did work into that, and we started a really cool grazing program, and I just couldn't take corporate anymore. It's just, it's too much. And but I don't know. I can't say enough about how much I love the people there. They're really incredibly good friends and mentors, but wasn't a good fit.
Tell me about the idea of bringing livestock into vineyards. Obviously, it's not a unique concept. It's been done, right, but there's some special circumstances. So what did you have to consider, and how did you plan out how it would work?
Oh, dude, okay. So this is kind of cool. There's a little bubble in between viticulture Jared and Colorado Jared, and there was, like, during COVID, so my wife works at OSU in admissions, and so when everything went online, she was working from home, and I was going down to work for a friend in California who grazes. He's got Chaos Sheep Outfit, and so they're grazing Napa, Sonoma, Mendo, Yolo, Colusa counties, not many grapes in Yolo and Colusa, but like rice fields and cover crops and stuff. Anyway, I went to work for him for 6 months, I think in 21. And Rob and Jamie are the best. But there are a lot of different efficiencies with grazing under vine versus grazing open fields, and so that helped kind of sharpen where I needed to change my paradigm to do that. And even like the little things that you wouldn't really consider, like the dogs. If you start herding dogs working in programs under vine, like, they know different amounts of pressure to put on the flocks when you're coming out, so you don't blow sheep sideways through trellis, you know, that sort of thing. And but like, just lots of little things. Yeah. Yeah. That manager's gonna love me. But yeah, lots of small things that just make it you don't consider when you're not under vine. So that's actually that year was a really super terrible drought too, mostly in California, a little bit up here, and we didn't have forage, so I actually sold everything that year, and I thought, I've always wanted to go into viticulture, like this is what I want to do, so I was researching programs to go to school, and I was on the OSU site and saw an ops assistant job listing and Lee's contact info to apply for the job, and I was like, let's give this a whirl. And anyway, got to talking, and she hired me at RP for an ops assistant for Morgan, and one of the best things I've ever done. And I still haven't gone to school for it yet. I've been wanting to. I've been like, but then like working in ops, like how do you take classes? And so I want to go to Schmidt. I love Brian. Yeah, I'd like to have a little more technical knowledge, and then yeah, I want to build a farm grapes better. So.
Specifically, grazing-based viticulture. What are when you're selling it to someone, when you're trying to convince someone to use it, what are the advantages, and what are the issue? What is difficult about it?
I'm not a very good salesman, so I always feel more comfortable when people come to me, and then I don't have to try to do a pitch. Drew Herman helped me with like a cost of benefit analysis that he did for Alexana, and so I can share that with clients, and that's pretty darn cool. But so Clay helped me put together, like in my proposal spreadsheets and stuff, where I'm like estimating acreage and fertility contributions and things, like, so that's also something we can hand off to Demeter certified clients. Like, they've got all that information that they don't have to figure out later too. Like, we're gonna stock 300 sheep for, on this many acres, and, approximate weight range for the animals. And I think that'll also help later with like vineyards where the owners and managers like want to start selling carbon credits. Like, if we can start sinking some big carbon storage in the subsoil, I mean, there are all kinds of environmental credits available for that, which is good. I mean, like, yeah.
What about benefits to the vineyard?
There's some fun stuff there. My assumption that it would take a few years, or was that it would take a few years to see any benefits, and American Lamb Board was out, and they filmed a good lamb propaganda piece with us, and I love it. It's beautifully done too, and it's real, so it's not like cheesy, smoky. Anyway, we were at Winderley, and I was like, let's go and taste wine, because Bill and Donna's wines are killer, and so I took the production guys in, and just visited, and Stacy was serving, and I blurted out my I don't think we'll really see anything for a couple years, and Stacy's like, hold up, dude, like I've been here for years, and the difference in vigor on canopy in the blocks you grazed versus normal years and versus the blocks you didn't graze was night and day. And I was like, I didn't have a benchmark, so the experience on that property for that, and it's cool, and yeah, Bill makes sure that stuff's farmed very well, and his wines show it. Oh my god, I love Winderley, Big Table. Like, these guys that are doing some really cool farming, is showing. Stephen Hagen's stuff, that was the first Pinot I tasted that I thought was worth drinking. Because I'm coming from a cab background, and hot weather, huge diurnal swings, and these really intense, complex wines that I was really disappointed I didn't find any good ones this last trip. But you know, and then I'm like, just tastes like those seltzer waters that were stored near a vineyard, you know? I'm like, and they're like, oh, you just have to appreciate the subtleties. Like, you know? And then, anyway, so we went to the Truffle Festival in Eugene, and Steven's pouring, and, why can't I think of his name from Brigadoon?
Oh, Matt Schoen.
Yeah, and they poured, and I was like, this is what they're talking about. Yeah, brilliant winemakers, good farmers. Yeah, and then since then I've started to taste more and more that aren't real great either, but some really, yeah. So I'm starting to appreciate it a lot more. And I'm still a little shocked that, like, the wimpiest cultivar, it's like trying to take Holstein cows and make them survive in a range situation. Like, these are the most pathetic, weak grapes. And they're finicky. No, they're weak. I think I'll get fungus now.
It's just part of the charm, I think.
I guess.
So you mentioned going to work for Results Partners. Tell me about the kind of the role you had there. Were you doing standard viticulture as well, or was it mostly grazing stuff?
So I had I think I had 4 different positions in the 2 years. I just kept moving. I started out as the ops assistant in Mid-Valley, and then they moved Morgan up to kind of the more Yamhill County vineyards and fewer Polk County ones. And then they moved me to Eola. And so I was working for Alejandro Moreno there. Love that guy too. Moreno's a good dude. And so then I was like there's really cool vineyards in Eola. And then when we did the official pitch to the management for the grazing program, they moved me to the vit team, and so I worked on the vit team for a while we built out the grazing program. And so I got a lot more technical knowledge there, but like I feel like, this is an aside, but I feel like anybody who wants to work in viticulture should start in operations, because nothing is more pathetic than watching a gringo try to prune vines. Like, you know, and like they're there all freaking day, and like, you know, it's like, get out there, bust ass, learn, make mistakes, and go. And then, you know, like while you're doing that, add technical knowledge and more science, and like, why are we doing it like this? And I think that especially if you want to farm your own grapes, that's a good place to start too. Like, get in there, get dirty, try to keep up with the crew. Oh my god. I want to be like Luz Maria Almeida Lopez when I grow up. Luz is like, I've never worked with Lupe also, but I've never worked with anybody who does a more perfect job with everything they're doing while supervising a crew, and she's still ahead of the crew while supervising. Like, she's my hero. And you know, and as a neophyte, like, she treated me really well too, and I learned so much from her. And then Lupe the same way too. And my first time on a crew with Lupe, we were leaf pulling at Tall Tree. It's a Hampton-owned vineyard down south, close to Corvallis. And like, those guys, she caught a gear and she pushed the crew into a new gear, and like, I'm like, I gotta work to keep up with these guys, and I'm a hard worker. Like, and I'm always like, I go. If you know my mom, like, we're you work, and anyway, end of the day, like, I was like, talking to Morgan, he's like, so how'd it go? And I was like, oh my God. Like, and he's like, don't worry, they're just testing you. And next day, Lupe starts out easy. We get through ejercicio, something like going, get ready to go, and like, oh, and like, and for about a week, and I was like, you sure they're just testing me, or am I just this big of a wimp? And he's like, no. And anyway, the next week, Lupe's like, you work pretty good for a white boy. And then it just like, normal workload, and like, I can actually do this. But like, it was like, oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, pathetic. That's me.
You passed the test.
Yeah, barely. I almost died. But no, dude, it was great. I love those people. My crew, my coworkers, like the whole everybody, like RP is, for all of its flaws, it's got some incredible stuff, and it's the people, like, so yeah, yep.
So tell me about, you mentioned obviously it's time to leave. You're thinking about doing your own thing. Tell me about how this idea came about and getting it started.
I was a little tired of being an IP generator, and built a 6-figure new enterprise and was making 23 an hour, and the new hires are making 21. And not having some tools I needed, like, So that's one of the corporate hurdles you gotta jump over, is like, I need these expenses, and they're like, no, you can't have a weed eater, but we got you a new 4-wheeler. I'm like, I realize you guys need the deductions, but so it was tough, and like, I know the challenges in there, like, but I couldn't do that. Anyway, I built a killer business plan, and went to the bank, and the first AgWest is like, yeah, you still need 40% down. And I'm like, sir, I'm poor. like, this is the most exquisite business plan I've ever seen, but you need 40% down. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I talked to FSA, and FSA is like, yeah, let's go, let's do this. This is incredible. And AgWest is like, get finance there, operate 6 months and come back to us. We're like, this will be great. And FSA is just like going on forever. And I'm starting to lose clients because I don't have sheep and I don't have fence, and like all these things. And so it's like getting a little desperate, and so I called Umpqua, and they said the same thing too, like, this is incredible, we've never seen a more organized farmer. And I'm like, me organized? Like, what the hell? And like, I've never been called that before. I've been called a lot of things, never organized. But anyway, but they're like, yeah, let's do this. Like, but I mean, like, I needed like 200,000 for startup capital, and they're like, can you do it for 75? And I'm like, ugh. It'll be tight, but we can, So I had enough to get fencing, I had enough to get some more stock, and so, yeah, stepped out into that. And we had clients that wanted to work with us, and like, like, I brought clients to RP that wanted to work with, that sounds cocky. They were friends and they wanted to work with me, like, and I wanted to work with them. And so anyway, when I left, they're like, we want to go with you. And I felt a little like, almost like, but I don't know how this all works. I'm good with herding sheep. The rest of it, we're figuring it out as we go. But anyway, And then my buddy, I hired, the guy I hired as my assistant at RP was like, I don't want to work here if you're not working here. And so when I turned in my 2 weeks, he sent his in that morning too, and that looked really bad. But like, he was quitting anyway, because, yeah, I don't know. It is rough. But, so here we are, and I'm trying to think of a good, what's that quote from Firefly? And I think it's like, here we are out on the raggedy edge, and like, I'll mess up the quote, but yeah, Firefly and Serenity, I quote that all the time too.
So tell me, you mentioned you had clients who were interested in working with you. Tell me about how that's grown and how you've, I guess, how you plan it out. How do you get the right animals to the right place at the right time?
Yeah, okay, so that's some cool stuff right there. There's a lot of word of mouth. Like I say, I'm not a good salesman, so I don't like to come and tell you the benefits of the thing. So the people that usually come to us already know the benefits. They've done the research, they've been seeing it happening at other places, or like, they're clever enough to know that having sheep out front of the tasting room is going to draw in clients. And so they've been a really incredible marketing opportunity too. Yeah, mostly they've been coming to us. There's some really cool research, like they're doing the Domaine Chandon with Rob and Jamie's flock and those things. Like, they're showing some pretty huge in Carneros, and it's, pretty muggy and hot, and like it's got all and Pinot and Chardonnay. And anyway, they're showing some really cool things, like really notable resistance to fungal pathogens. So but I mean, it's like you're giving the vines the tools they need to have a healthy immune system. And so, yeah. But like, dude, the spore count drops from one year to the next, like a JK carrier. It's freaking cool. Like, it works. And yeah. It's cool.
So tell me about the logistical part of it then for you.
Okay, yeah, logistics are tricky sometimes. So we're trying to plan, like, for the upcoming season. Like, right now, we're trying to get clients lined up, have all our proposals and grazing plans built out, get contracts signed, get everything set up, retainers in for the season, so we actually have operating capital. Anyway, yeah, so we're trying to plan, like, the number of head that we need to stock. Like, I've got about 500-ish head of breeders, and I want to try to scale that up to about 1,000 head of breeding ewes of our own, and then only accommodate summer grazing projects for that many sheep. But for the upcoming season, I'm estimating we'll have about 2,000-ish acres to graze this winter, so I'll need about 2,000 head of sheep. So, and I'd originally thought we were gonna have about 42 clients, but I think we're gonna have about 30-ish clients, but with some larger acreages for this winter. So I'm gonna try to, I've got a friend who's gonna let me custom graze some of her ewes for us, and they're the right genetics. They're coastal Californian, kind of Perrindale, Romney, of course wool crosses, some Cheviot in there. They're a little hot-tempered, but like, it's usually only when you're in corrals and those little things are like popcorn. But the right kind of hardy genetics are already acclimated to wet winter and that sort of thing. But she's got 1,200 ewes we're gonna try to run this winter, so we can cover a lot of ground with them, and trying to set up regional hubs, but kind of set up a Bethel Heights road hub, another group for like Greater Eola where there aren't contiguous properties, one group for the Montanor properties, one group for the other north kind of Yamhill County stuff, and then one for Warden Hill Road. It's kind of the plan for right now. And we've had a little interest in some of the other AVAs, but like no big commitments. And then there's some sticker shock on the prices. I built out a simplified base acreage rate, and it was from working in ops, like replacing the fertility contribution and a mowing pass and, you know, a weeding or like a hoeing pass with a crew, like just pretty minimal. And there's a lot of sticker shock on that, which normally if that was happening in operations, there's, you know, it's just normal. But like if it's a different thing, it's kind of like, oh my God, I can't do 250 an acre extra, you know. And so there's a lot of people that are like, I can't pull that out of the budget, and that's okay. Like wine sales are down, like there's a lot going on, and so I respect that, but I can't do it any cheaper. Like you just can't. And so that's kind of where we're at right now with that sort of thing. But when we were at RP, we did a cheaper acreage rate and then build hours, and it still comes out to the same thing. So, but people, some clients would be like, oh yeah, 50 an acre in hours, that's fine, and it's still 250 an acre. But it's just different in how it's approached. But that's kind of where we have to be right now. Fuel prices, labor, taxes and taxes and taxes and taxes, and yeah. So like some of the biodynamic guys, like they need to have stock on site, like they need to have livestock on the properties, and I respect that hugely. And some of them are like, well, we could get started with you and then hire our own person. And I'm like, yeah, but you're gonna have 50,000 in salary to have a person do, or you know, like it's cheaper for us to. So there's some cool things there. And I wish I could build out like a consulting deal a little bit later, and then build some on-site or in-house programs. But that's down the road a ways. Right now, we just got to focus on building a good system.
And why the name Naked Grazing?
I wanted people to giggle. I want them, like, because there's so much, you know, like in wine, and I'm just like, I want them to laugh. I want them to see this and just be like, do they mean the sheep? Do they mean them? Do they mean, you know? And then I just want them to just, you know, kind of get off guard a little bit and have a good time. So they come out and scratch some cows and get slobbery and look at the sheep and yeah, help feed bummer lambs and that sort of thing. Like I don't know, there's a really cool interaction that happens. Like it is amazing the increase in tasting room traffic. Bethel Heights and Bryn Mawr and Bjornson did their wine, or like the sheep share deal, which was a brilliant move. And so I put the bottle babies out front in Bjornson, and that block a really fabulous Gamay. And yeah, and the babies just stayed out there for like, I don't know, it was 5 or 6 weeks or something like that. And it was just great. And I'd be out there checking on them, and the babies do zoomies with me. And I'm like, come on guys, and they'd all come out of the tasting room and be like, oh my gosh, it's so cute. I'm like, it is really, yeah. It is. I'm a cowboy, and yeah, no, it's pathetic. Gosh, they just melt your soul. And yeah.
So how does Naked Grazing grow from here?
Some of the things I need to focus on, I need to build my team. I'd like to scale to a point where I don't know, I'd like to graze a few thousand acres of vines and maybe subcontract or hire some subcontractors that'll follow our SOPs. I'd like to have other producers having some viable enterprises. As far as the grazing side of things, I want to work with American Land Board to develop a label for what we're doing, do a vineyard finished lamb label, you know, within our guidelines and off of specific, you know, organic and biodynamic certified vineyards. I have a problem with selling meat that's been grazed on properties treated with herbicides. Those are bioaccumulative and nasty, and there's been too many people in my family and extended friends group that have got cancer from weird crap like that, and I don't want to serve that to people. So, I want to take our own lambs finished that way and go to market with them. So I need to find the right processing and the right distribution for that. I don't think there's no way that if I had 1 sheep per acre for every vine in Oregon, that I could provide enough lamb just to suit Portland's market. And I don't want to cut in on the markets that are already here. I feel like we have a niche that we just have to present it and we'll have clientele. So that's a deal. And then I want to go vertical with our wool. I'm going to go into knitwear and probably some woven yardage. And I think with the yardage, we do wholesale and go to upholstery or that sort of thing. I come from oil country, and if I never see another gas well, or it is so dirty, and I worked oil field for a while and got poisoned, and like it's a train wreck. But let's walk on natural fibers instead of off-gassing nasty plastic carpet. And so if we could rebuild the carpet wool industry, we've got all the infrastructure here. And there are mills sitting, not running. And I think there's huge potential for it. Develop more long wool breeds with consistent clips. Romneys, Lincolns, Blueface Leicester, Border Leicester, Teeswaters, Wensleydales, that whole family of sheep from England they're built for this, and the wool is incredible and durable. So we go to carpet with that. And even Valley Blacknose, I keep telling the Valley people to stop making pets out of those things. Like, they're not that cute. If you shear them, they're nice sheep, but like, let's make them the face of rebuilding a natural, they look cute if you're seeing them in pictures. They're kind of like gawky and dorky when they're in person. But they produce huge amounts of really coarse wool. You can shear a 6-inch clip off of them twice a year and probably like 8-10 pounds per clip. They make so much wool. So why not take them, make them the face of a rebuilt carpet industry, put them under vine, and but those guys don't want to, it's all marketed to, and yeah, I don't know, there's a lot of potential I see, and so, yeah. And then the down wools, the horn dorsets we're running, go to knitwear, Aran sweaters, wool gloves, beanies. So that's what I want to do with them. And then Shetlands, I'm not sure where I want to take that yet. Morits are my favorite color in the breed, and they're those kind of reddy brown ones. And I don't know if you know much about the history of khaki, but khaki fabrics were made from Morit Shetlands, and so they were all British Imperial Army uniforms, and that tan color is the sun bleaching on those brown from that brown wool is really cool. And so if you go out there now and you look and you see those really rich brown faces and brown legs and kind of tan khaki tips on the fleeces, and you part that fleece and it's all chocolate brown in there, and you're just like, oh. Anyway, it's my favorite color, and they're feisty little turds. But I think it'd be pretty cool to make some like New World khaki yardage, and you could take the coarser ones to like, I keep thinking like purses or something like that. Like you could do high ends. Yeah. So yeah, that's where I want to go next. And then expand. I have a lot of interest in the gorge. A lot of interest in the gorge, but I don't know how to manage an operation that far away yet. So maybe next year. And there's a lot of acres, a lot of vines.
You also mentioned some wine aspirations and vineyard aspirations for yourself. Tell me about that.
Yeah. I love serving people. I love being a catalyst for a gathering. I think probably one of my better giftings is the toxic side of me can also drive people away, but I think when I'm operating in a healthy state, I'm good at bringing people together and facilitating networking and like sometimes I joke I'm like the Dolly Levi of the sheep industry, and I'm just like, I make the connections. You know, I'll mess up those songs too. Gosh dang it. Yeah, I probably quote too much Hello Dolly too.
It's a good spread of pop culture influences. I'm very much appreciating it.
I was thinking more like almost schizophrenic, but there's yeah, sorry. I would love to be able to come up with a capital to buy Emerson. I think there's a lot more potential for producing some better wines there, but that place, I have a killer business plan written up for that too. I just can't get capital for $1.6 million. It's wild, but yeah, I envision like a tasting room space. Like if you've been to Crowing Hen or Salt Creek Cidery or some of those places they're actually pretty family friendly, and there's like, it's a low key atmosphere, but you've got a high quality beverage. Like, I mean, I feel like wine doesn't have to be pretentious, and I feel like I cuss a little too much and my accent is a little too country, and I wear Wranglers. I'm still a little cowboy, and I love wine, and I don't feel comfortable in a lot of tasting rooms here. And I want to make it so that I have an environment to host where people don't feel like they have to put on a show. And I like getting to know people, like them, and not their, you know, the mask we have to wear. And like I don't want to replicate some of these where like, I don't want to make it so that the crew isn't welcome in the winery. Like, I've been to places where they're like, I don't want to have to look at the porta potty, you know, and then there's the girl who has to use that on the harvest crew that's like, I mean, how do we get to that snobby of a, they're not welcome in the house or the tasting room or the winery to use the restroom. I don't know. I don't think it's like intentional racism, but I think there's an element of that in there too. And I don't like that.
So if you were to take a project like that on, tell me what it would look like if you were controlling vineyard vineyard space. If you had complete ownership control, what's it look like?
I want to, just on the farming side, I want to farm a few different varieties. I still want to grow a little bit of Pinot. I want to grow some really cool Chardonnay clones. I love 87 and 77. The aromatics in those just slay me. But I've been doing a lot of research, and then, you know, like just even in the stuff we farmed, the quality of fruit is not different with different head heights. So if I plant on a little wider spacing and I bring my fruiting wire up to 60 inches and flop everything, like for that property, especially east-west rows, and let that breeze blow through there and dry out all the dew, and it's beautiful, and flop everything to the south. And then sheep can do the hedging, and I set it up so I've got more vigorous rootstocks that I can manage my vigor with the subcanopy, so I plant more aggressive cover crops, more chicory, more plantain, taller clovers, and stuff that will compete with the vines, and then I can be producing multiple crops. I don't know how to make an enterprise budget work with a single species. Like, I don't know how the guys are getting enough off of fruit sales to cover expenses. And I couldn't make that work in my budgets. So if I have, even if I'm yielding a little lighter, or, you know, if I'm selling a little cheaper fruit even, if I've got a crop of lambs, I've got a secondary crop. And I think running poultry under vine too is smart. Like, get poultry out of these stupid confinement operations. That's deplorable. And I like what Wendell Berry says about, like, once you condense them, then something that would normally be an asset becomes a liability. So like manure then becomes this giant toxic mess instead of something that is regenerating and you know, like so yeah, get everything out and moving, and yeah, better quality meat too. I mean, like, everything about it's better, but it's different, and yeah.
So as you've been in Oregon, tell me about how you've seen the demand for what you're doing. Has it changed? Has it grown? And do you see it continuing to grow?
Exponentially. Yeah. There are a lot of different motivations for wanting to, you know, do what we're doing. But, you know, and whether it's just like a PR stunt or whatever, even then, as a PR stunt, greenwashing, it's still having a positive impact. So we can harsh on that and be all like, bunch of hypocrites, all we want. We're still having a positive impact. Like, so there's that. But the ones that are really progressive farmers and thinking about the future, and like, those guys are the ones that are primarily coming to us. And that's really cool. And, I should do a shout out to Mark Bjornson too. Sean and I worked in a lot of vineyards at RP, and when we got to Bjornson and saw the healthiest subcanopy that we've been in the valley so far, we were both just like, this is like we both kind of blurted it at the same time. We were just like, this place is great, you know? Like, so yeah, we were all fangirling Mark's farming. So, and his wines are good. So yeah, so shout out to Mark and all those guys on that hill. Those guys are good farmers. And I don't know, I keep saying, I think a very large amount of a winemaker's personality comes through in their wines. And so, like, Bill and Donna's, like Winderley, wines are so elegant and classy, but friendly. Like, there's like this friendliness and approachability to it and it's a lot like Bill. They're amazing. And Jim Prosser's wines at JK Carrier are moody and bold and very, like, rah, and so much like Jim. And Rachel's wines at Bryn Mawr are like vivacious and so full of life. And like, I don't want to say bubbly's not right. There's like this sparkly, she's got this sparkle, and it comes, and everything at Bethel Heights. You know, like I don't know. I don't know. It's just really cool. It's really cool.
One question left for you.
Sure.
What's your biggest accomplishment? What are you proudest of so far?
Staying alive. I don't know. Actually, right now, there's been a huge amount of growth, and like personal growth in this. And I knew that when I started this, I had to do something different. My blood pressure was, and it didn't matter how. Anyway. I was like, if I start this, I'm going to follow myself into this. So the toxic traits, the self-sabotage, like all of my Enneagram 4 and ENFP problems, the drama, dragging past trauma in with this, like, I have to grow or I'm gonna die. And I think actually literally, like, I was getting pretty depressed, and no actual suicidal ideations, but like I was going to go get groceries and I was like, if someone hit me, and I was like, whoa, we gotta make some changes here, dude. And so it was passive, but it was there. And sorry, I teared up a little. So growth in that, and like super stressful situations, like the last 2 months, because our summer projects have like dialed way down, our budget's gone like way down, and we're still cash flowing and we're still positive, like, but where I would normally start to be all like freaking out and like just making really, what am I trying to say, like, just not healthy decisions. I've been able to kind of like step back and see the situation and be like, what's the constructive way forward with this? Like, and then like throwing in some Byron Katie, and I've started going to therapy, and that's been amazing. But like some Byron Katie things, like you're replaying past trauma and you're imagining a fake future, and neither of those things are right here. Like, those are both imagination at this point. So like, how are we going to be here, like present in this moment and make the decisions that are going, is this decision, like I've been trying to do, and sorry if I get a little spiritual on this, but like I'm trying to weigh out things that are like good and clean and decent, or like, so like my matrix is like, does this decision bring death, theft, or destruction? And like, or is it, like creative and energizing, and like it, so like, and so I'm trying to base all those decisions off of that little matrix, like in the moment. And I feel like there's been a lot of growth in that, and I feel like that's having a better impact on my work and the business and everyone I'm interacting with. And so I feel like that right now is the biggest accomplishment. I love seeing the impact. The impact is huge. And that could still be there even if I was unhealthy. But anyway, is that too woo-woo and out there?
Meaningful. If it's meaningful to you, right?
Yeah, very.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Well, congratulations on that. I'm really happy to hear that.
Thanks.
And that's all the questions that I have for you. Anything I didn't ask that I should have? Anything we didn't cover that you want to cover?
I don't know. I can't think of anything.
We covered a lot.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Sharing your time, sharing your story, sharing this beautiful space with us, sharing your animals with us. It was great to meet everybody.
Very welcome.
Go
Thank
ahead and
you.
let you off the hook. Thank you so much.